Greetings and stalagmites, everyone. So today, actually I'll start this one out with a question. Do you ever have those days where you couldn't possibly be more frustrated with how ignorant or stupid someone is, or even a group of people, pardon me, not to mention incompetent at what they do? Doing any kind of customer service or retail or dealing with the public in any way, shape, or form, whether it be, as I said, customer service, and whether it be big companies, small companies, little people, person to person, retail, whatever. It's just amazing to think that there are people on this earth who, I guess it's just different mindsets, but it just blows me away every day, almost every day, when I deal with someone who just doesn't understand basic concepts in organization or communication. It's just amazing. So that leads into what I'm going to talk about today. That's why it's refreshing when you, as a customer, get to talk to someone or get assisted by or help from someone who is not inept at their job, or is really helpful and awesome. Like, not only do they do the whole, okay, I had a tech issue, for instance, and they solved it. Not only that, but they do a decent job at their small talk as well. And there's that too. There's kind of that, I use this phrase pretty frequently, or this word pretty frequently, but there's that rapport that you have with a customer, or even as a customer to the support agent, which is always awesome. This came up today because the SSL vulnerability that Apple had in the last 2 days. This is actually kind of a hot topic, very as of recent. There is it's also known as the Gotofail vulnerability, and that's because I read the write-up on it. I think if you go to gotofail.com, I think it is. I'll put the link down below. But the site itself is a check if you're using Safari or whatever. Pretty much Safari. That's really the only way you would have ever, noticed the issue to begin with on a Mac or on an iPad or iPhone or whatever. And it spread across all three. So it spread across all three, but it was a vulnerability in OS X and iOS. And what had happened was, as far as I could tell from the write-up, it just seemed like a simple code slip-up. Somebody had written, there's 2 lines, there's 2 mentions, so the snippet is that there is a Gotofail, and then there's another Gotofail right below it. And based from what I understood, and I'm not a coder by any means, they put that discrepancy out there, but the premise is, from what I understood, the fact that since there were 2, that Gotofail was put in there twice, one without a starting point. So it's essentially Gotofail, I guess, is the close, and then Gotofail again is a close. So since there was no opening to that second close, it would automatically pass data, or pass code through, or cipher suites, or whatever the case was. Again, that's based on my limited knowledge of coding and how it works. But so the reason why that is part of what happened today was because the patch just came out for the vulnerability for Mac OS X today. 10.9.2. If you haven't updated yet, please do. I will go ahead and link to the Apple support KB down below as well. But just go to, if you're on a Mac, click on the Apple menu, click on Software Update, and update your Mac now. The vulnerability didn't just affect Safari, it did affect other applications inside macOS as well. Stuff like, I think, the App Store itself, I think, was one of them. There was a few others, though. But it's one of those things where security vulnerabilities are things that you actually want to patch and want to fix, since they're usually not such a big deal. However, this came up again today because I went ahead and installed it. First thing, I saw somebody retweet the link to the Apple KB about the update, and I went and I was like, okay, well, I've got to go download, update, typical software update, downloads, installs, and it had downloaded, and then when it went to install, it said it had to restart, and I'm like, okay, well, big deal, it always happens, whatever. So I restarted. When I restarted, it came to a gray screen on my MacBook. Big whoop-de-doo. It's just a gray screen, not a huge deal. But it stayed that way for about 5 or 10 minutes. Then I started getting worried. So, and actually, sadly, I don't have the name of the person who I talked to from Apple support. But anyway, what had happened was I said, well, you know what, I'll just go to the Apple side. I have Apple Care. Why not? Might as well use it. And used the chat support. I want to say his name was Nikhil or something. I can't remember. But he was very helpful, and we ran through a bunch of steps. He stayed with me. And to some extent, I love chat support more than I do phone support. Not to say that you're not going to run into not to say that there's the same... Not to say that there is less of a chance of running into a complete idiot in chat support, but it's easier to multitask with that, and also you don't have to have this awkward silence on a line. Sometimes that happens in chat, in phone conversations. So it's easier to multitask and easier to just kind of go, well, okay, let's just sit back and wait for the issue to get resolved. In the event where you're waiting for, say, verifying disk permissions or whatever the case was. So we ran through a few steps. We booted in safe mode. Disk didn't seem to be mounted. The only thing that it seemed to be was I had run into disk permissions. He had mentioned to verify the disk permissions and fix them. And it seemed like there was a ton of disk permissions that were incorrect, which I found odd, but given I've had my MacBook Pro about a year and like 8 months, maybe? Probably 8 months. So, and I haven't like formatted it or anything like that, so who knows what the problem was, or what all the permissions were, or all that. But we did that, and I rebooted, and everything worked. It was amazing. It was great. And that's kind of the support experience I love going through for myself, because I am technically knowledgeable. However, when I'm frustrated and having some sort of issue, or even worried about my MacBook, because, well, if my MacBook died, I would be really pissed, because I spent about $2,500 on that thing about a year and 8 months ago, and I really don't want to see that go down the drain so quickly. Hence why I spent another few hundred to get the Apple Care. So I did all that, and I was back up and running, and now I'm on 10.9.2, which is great. But I have to give a shout out to Apple support. The first time or two I contacted them, I actually was the one who was able to resolve my own issue and told them what the fix was, but every time I've either gone in to fix something or called them or supported with them since, it's been wonderful and carefree almost. So if you have a Mac, I cannot recommend Apple Care enough. It's the first thing. That's part of what it's part of kind of what makes Apple hardware so nice. There is definitely the added cost, and this is not me being an Apple. I love both sides equally, to be perfectly honest. I like Windows and Microsoft. I mean, it's hard to say I like both because Microsoft is not a hardware vendor. Apple is, and they're a software vendor. So, as software vendors, I would have to say I like Apple more than Microsoft. That I will be honest with that. And that's because calling Microsoft, well, I've never done it except when I have to activate various keys, and that's just a pain in the ass. No, it's just a pain. There's no two ways about it. It's a pain in the ass. Apple, okay, you have your serial, do you have your key or whatever? Great. How can I help you? Whatever the case, I mean, it's the serial or whatnot is used as a method to identify you almost, or to identify your product, where Apple has that advantage where they tie in with the hardware, whereas Microsoft doesn't. I mean, I've called HP support for my managed switch. I've called, I'm trying to think of who else. But I've called various companies, and Microsoft is the one company I think so far that I've not talked to a single person yet. Because most of their stuff is hidden, given nobody calls Google really. Actually, no. I've chatted with Google support, so for Google Shopping Express and so on and so forth. But I've chatted with them. So Microsoft is the one company that I've never talked to. And it's kind of, it's not disconcerting, but it's almost disassociating themselves from the customer. And given they don't care, and why would they? But it's always great to have that experience. So kind of a plug for Apple, kind of a plug for Mac in general. But yeah, I guess I'll probably go ahead and end it here, running about 12 minutes. If you have any thoughts on the vulnerability or any issues that you ran into when updating your Mac, or any thoughts on how Apple is better than Microsoft, or I want to hear your side, and I'm open to both because I use both. My Microsoft Windows is on my desktop, and Apple is my laptop, and I use both all the time. If I didn't have my MacBook, I don't know what I'd do. But so, and then my desktop, again, I don't know. There was a point at which I thought I could just pretty much give up my desktop, but I've gotten used to gaming, and I just can't game on my Mac. And so far, I haven't seen a Mac that does so very well. Most people that are gaming are using PCs, or they're using consoles. And I'm just not ready to move to a console exclusively, ever, I don't think. I mean, I have a Wii U. I was very happy with that purchase at the time, given their development's been a little slow on new games, but that's a completely different issue. But, yeah. So, going over everything again. SSL vulnerability in Mac OS X and iOS. Update if you haven't already. Both are available, or software updates are available for both. In Mac, you go to the Apple menu, go to Software Update, and on iOS, you go to Settings, and I think Software Update as well, if I remember correctly. And then you'll be all patched and ready to go. And if you have an Apple, get AppleCare. It's a few $100, yes, but it's worth every single penny. I've had to go in and get my MacBook repaired, and it would have cost significantly more than the money that it cost for AppleCare in order to get it fixed if I did not have AppleCare. If I had, it actually cost me more than AppleCare cost to get it fixed, or would have. So, anyway. I will leave you with that, and until next time. Oh, sorry. Define these all things. Till next time, good night and good luck.